What happens when the trap you meticulously designed to eliminate your opponent snaps shut on your own foot?
You know, it's more than just a political loss at that point. It's a spectacular failure of tactical prediction.
A massive failure.
It really signals that the architects, the people who drew the map, they just fundamentally misjudged the reality on the ground.
Exactly. And that's the shock news we are tearing into today. Republicans in Georgia, they really thought they had drawn an unbeatable map. A map so precisely engineered.
The fortress.
A fortress. But last night, the Democratic candidate didn't just win. He created a political earthquake in what was, by all measures, supposed to be safe, deep red territory.
And for you, our focus today is really a forensic analysis of this. It might seem like a minor state house race, Georgia House District 121.
Right, HD 121.
But this local result holds these massive, flashing red light implications for what's coming next. We're going to dissect how local organizing, a relentless message on affordability, and, well, a seismic shift in youth sentiment created what's being called a stealth upset.
A powerful mega backfire. So, okay, let's unpack this right away, because the story here isn't just that a seat flipped. It's about the geometry, the sheer impossibility of it happening at all.
When we talk about this specific district, Georgia House District 121, we're talking about a state-level seat. It covers parts of Athens, Clark, and Oconee counties.
And this wasn't some seat they just overlooked.
Oh, not at all. This result is really a testament to the fact that even the most aggressive political engineering, what we call gerrymandering, it can be completely overwhelmed by voter momentum.
The sources really describe the design of this district as the pinnacle of the gerrymander tactic.
That's absolutely right. The Republican mapmakers went to just extraordinary lengths to ensure a permanent red advantage.
How do they do it?
Well, if you look at the map of HD 121, you see a masterclass in what's called vote dilution. And the target was a major Democratic stronghold, Athens, Georgia.
A big college town, heavily Democratic.
Exactly. So the objective of the state legislature was, very clearly, to surgically dissect Athens, to split its Democratic voting population into 3 separate districts.
So instead of letting Athens be its own strong Democratic district that could, reliably elect a representative,
they chopped it up. They stretched the district lines out like tentacles. They took that powerful Democratic voting bloc and just diluted it across 3 conservative-leaning districts,
tying each little slice of Athens to a much larger, reliably Republican rural and suburban area.
Precisely. The calculation was simple. You water down your opposition's power base so that no single Democrat can ever get enough votes to win in any of those 3 new districts. It was designed to be electoral immunity.
And crucially, this worked so well that this was not a swing district, not by a long shot. This was considered a deep red, safe seat.
And we have the data to prove it. Donald Trump carried this exact district by a plus 12-point margin in 2024.
12 points. A district where a presidential candidate wins by 12 points is, it's a fixed variable, right?
It's a guaranteed hold. You budget your time, your money, your resources for competitive seats, not for a seat with a 12-point advantage baked right into the map. It was supposed to be a firewall.
Which just makes the scale of this stealth upset all the more stunning. And the man at the center of it is the Democratic candidate, Eric Gissler. To get the magnitude of this, we have to look at what happened just last year.
The contrast is it's stark. Last year in November, Gissler ran for this exact same seat. He lost.
And he didn't just lose.
He lost overwhelmingly, 61% to 39%.
A 22-point deficit. To put that in perspective for you, a candidate who loses by 22 points is usually politically finished in that district. You just don't come back from that.
Especially when the terrain, because of the gerrymander, is structurally designed for you to fail.
Yet, the new reality, just 1 year later, on December 9th, completely shattered that. Gissler won, 51% to 49%.
A 2-point victory margin.
We have to stop and just underline that shift. He went from a crushing 61 to 39 loss to a 51 to 49 victory.
It's a complete reversal of fortune. It defies the engineered geometry of the district. That's a net vote swing of nearly 12 points just to close the gap, plus another 2 to win. It's monumental.
And you can't just dismiss it as a fluke, because the state GOP didn't ignore this race. The Republican candidate had a big endorsement.
That's right. He was backed by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp.
Which signals how serious this was. When the governor steps in, the state party apparatus sees this seat as vital. They threw their weight, their messaging, their resources behind holding it.
And they still failed. They failed to hold a 12-point Trump district.
And this is where that gerrymander fundamentally backfired on them.
It's the risk, you know? It was designed to maximize the number of guaranteed Republican seats by over-concentrating conservative voters. The problem is when a real wave of discontent hits.
Like it did here.
The district doesn't have enough independent or swing voters to act as a buffer. Your margin for error just vanishes.
It's the ultimate political risk calculation gone wrong. They drew the map perfectly based on partisan history, but they completely failed to account for a massive nonpartisan factor.
Economic desperation. The trap was set perfectly, but the bait, the promise of a stable, affordable life, it just wasn't there for the voters they needed.
So the central question becomes, where did those votes come from? Where did that 13 or 14-point swing materialize from?
And the data is startlingly specific on this. It pinpoints the source of this seismic shift, the young 18 to 29-year-old student population.
The youth quake. And the epicenter was the University of Georgia campus precinct right there in Athens.
This is the data point that every political operative in the country needs to be looking at very, very carefully. Gissler's performance at the UGA campus precinct was, well, it was astonishing.
How astonishing.
He outperformed previous Democratic numbers, specifically Kamala Harris's performance in that same precinct, by a staggering 45 points.
45 points. Let's just sit with that. We are not talking about a little uptick in turnout. A 45-point overperformance is not statistical noise. That is a political mobilization that is almost unheard of.
And it wasn't just on campus. Countywide, Gissler still outperformed Harris's numbers by a very significant 28 points.
Which is important because it confirms the shift wasn't just limited to the dorm rooms. It reflects a broader movement of young people and young families throughout the entire Athens area.
And this level of engagement, it really confirms a dynamic that polling data, specifically from Yale, had been flagging. It showed this growing weakness for the Republican platform among that crucial 18 to 29 bracket.
So what we saw in HD 121 was that theoretical weakness turning into very real, high-leverage action at the ballot box.
So it's driving it. The sources suggest the roots of this youth disenchantment are. They're brutally simple. They're grounded in economic survival.
It's not about abstract ideology.
Yeah, not at all. It's the overwhelming feeling among these young voters that their futures have been sold out, that their economic pathways have been blocked. They feel, frankly, defrauded by the system.
This is that economic betrayal narrative that Gissler's campaign tapped into so effectively. These young adults are facing these severe, immediate realities that directly contradict the golden age economy they're being told they live in.
Let's break down the specifics. First and foremost, the inability to afford rent. For a student or a recent grad in Athens, a city that's growing like crazy, housing costs have become prohibitive.
Right. It squeezes their budget to the breaking point.
And that leads right to the second point.
Yeah.
They see no realistic future in buying a home. The whole idea of a starter home, that first rung on the ladder of generational wealth, it feels like it's evaporated for them.
They look at the next 10 years and just see debt. The American dream feels like a cruel joke.
This anxiety goes beyond just shelter, too. There are these systemic concerns about the future of work. The sources point to anxieties over AI, over the huge data centers popping up. They see these things not as opportunities, but as direct threats to their future careers.
So technology, which politicians are always celebrating as progress, feels like a threat to their livelihood.
A direct threat. And then there's this perception of punitive policy from institutions they thought were supposed to help them.
The Department of Education comes up specifically.
It does. The source mentions a concern that the department's handling of student loans, of debt relief, has been perceived as attacking or punishing young people, not helping them.
Think about the psychological impact of that. When you feel like the core institutions of government are actively working against your survival.
The motivation to vote against the incumbent machine, regardless of the map, it becomes overwhelming. It's an existential political act.
And that 45-point overperformance at UGA, that is the empirical data of that anger. It shows young people aren't just voting on party lines anymore, they're voting on survival.
And that margin is so big, it strongly suggests this isn't just registered Democrats turning out. This is a massive surge. It's newly registered voters, it's independents, it's apathetic voters who were activated by this one specific economic message.
The map makers accounted for partisan ID, but they didn't account for mass economic desperation completely overriding party loyalty.
Which brings us to the Gisler blueprint itself. It was a strategic masterpiece because it was just ruthlessly focused on the kitchen table.
Affordability, affordability, affordability.
Exactly. He connected state policy directly to personal pain points. And his approach was really intelligent, especially in how he talked to the Republican-leaning voters in Oconee County.
Right, he didn't attack them for their past votes?
No, he argued that the very people who voted for the former president, the ones who wanted lower prices, lower taxes, smaller government, he argued they are fundamentally not getting what they signed up for.
He exposed that disconnect between the promise of fiscal conservatism and the reality. And he used specific, alarming numbers to do it.
In a key interview cited in our sources, Gisler brought up the national debt. He noted it passed $37 trillion in August and then hit $38 trillion just last week.
$1 trillion of debt added in just 60 days.
That is an astonishing, undeniable metric. And by highlighting it, he directly challenges that small government narrative. If you voted Republican for fiscal responsibility and the debt is spiking like that,
your vote didn't deliver the outcome you wanted.
He also broadened it out. He argued that voters didn't sign up for this hyper-partisan national agenda. He said he doesn't believe voters wanted their state reps focused on militarized cities or things happening 2,000 miles away in Venezuela.
His argument was, you voted for economic relief, and you got massive debt and foreign distractions instead. It's a very powerful message for a conservative voter who feels let down.
He successfully reframed the whole conversation back to Georgia's state-level crisis points, the immediate issues that a state house rep actually has power over.
Let's get into those specifics, because this is the substance that moved the needle from that huge loss to a win.
First, and maybe most painful, the healthcare situation. Specifically, Georgia's long-standing failure to expand Medicaid.
And Gisler noted this is still technically possible, though it's harder now. But the consequences of not doing it are tragic and local.
Rural hospitals are closing across the state. They're creating these vast healthcare deserts in communities that need care the most.
And the crisis isn't just historical, it's getting worse right now.
That's right. Gisler focused on an impending crisis in January where 750,000 Georgians are projected to be priced out of their insurance plans.
You add that on top of the 1.2 million Georgians who already have no insurance at all.
And you get to 2 million people. Out of 11 million citizens in Georgia, nearly 1 in 5 lacks access to health care. This isn't some abstract federal debate. This is a clear state-level failure of epic proportions.
He then moved to nutritional assistance, SNAP. He noted 1.4 million Georgians depend on it. And he asked a really fundamental question.
He asked, would that dependency be so high if the state legislature had acted years ago to raise the minimum wage?
It's a very effective rhetorical move. He connects state-level wage policy directly to dependency on social services. He's making a pragmatic, non-ideological argument about economic stagnation.
And he made it clear the pain isn't just for the poor. He used a personal anecdote about the brutal reality of a $5,000 deductible for employer-based insurance.
A $5,000 deductible is a massive barrier to care. You're paying hundreds a month for the privilege of having insurance, and then you have to fork over $5,000 before it even really kicks in. The system is failing the middle class too.
He also hit on basic transportation costs. He noted Georgia has some of the highest car insurance rates in the entire Southeast. Every Georgia resident feels that.
A shared, universal pain point.
And finally, the issue that fueled that UGA student surge, housing. He framed it as simple supply and demand. Prices are skyrocketing because supply is failing to keep up with demand.
And his solution was actionable and state level. He called for state incentives to help local governments change zoning laws, approve more dense housing.
But he also expertly applied this critique to Oconee County, the conservative part of his district. Oconee is known for one big thing. It's excellent public schools. It's a massive draw for young families.
Right?
So here's the clever connection he made. If housing becomes unaffordable in Oconee, which it is, those young families, the very people moving there for the schools, they get priced out.
And that threatens the very school system that makes the community attractive in the first place.
Exactly. He framed affordability not just as a personal hurdle, but as an existential threat to the community's identity and its future. This granular, issue-specific campaigning is precisely what allowed him to overcome that massive partisan deficit.
So on one side, you have Eric Gisler meticulously documenting every single painful economic reality for Georgia voters.
And on the other side, you have the national Republican leadership, specifically Donald Trump, engaged in what the sources call a total denial, a massive golden age disconnect.
The contrast is staggering. Trump consistently claims the economy is an A+++, and that things are just great.
And when he's confronted with high prices, his strategy is dismissal. First, he'll acknowledge people say prices are high, but then he'll assert they're coming down substantially, minimizing the struggle.
But the second part is what the sources found so politically toxic.
He dismissed the entire concept of affordability. He said affordability is a new word, a political buzzword, and a hoax invented by the opposition.
You just can't win an election by telling 3/4 of the electorate that the financial pain they're feeling is fake.
That is just a new word invented by the other side. This level of disconnect is exactly why Gissler's message hits so hard, especially with those debt-saddled young voters.
And we have hard data on this. A recent Fox News poll found that 76% of voters have a negative view of the economy.
76%. That is 6 points higher than how voters felt at the end of the previous administration. It's an undeniable, persistent dissatisfaction.
So when 3/4 of the country feels the economy is bad, but the leader of your party is giving it an A+++A, you have a severe disconnect.
It doesn't just alienate the opposition. It disenfranchises your own potential voters. It provides the political fuel for a candidate like Gissler to win, even in a gerrymandered district.
And you can even see this disconnect in the campaign's visual strategy. The sources reference a recent Trump rally in Pennsylvania at the Mount Airy Casino. It was held in what attendees described as a smaller, kind of awkward wedding reception area.
It's a subtle but telling metaphor, isn't it? The shift from massive arenas to a wedding reception hall in a casino. It visually underlines a reduction in perceived momentum, and it stands in sharp contrast to the A+++ self-assessment.
But this concern about the A++ denial, it isn't just coming from the outside, it's coming from within Republican ranks.
That's right. Even a prominent Georgia figure like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who knows that conservative base inside and out, she recognizes how toxic this strategy is.
What did she say?
She stated publicly that Trump bragging about the economy is absolutely the worst political move. She sees the immediate danger in denying the true financial hardship that their own base is feeling.
She specifically pointed to a fracturing of the party outside of Washington, D.C. She said Republicans might look unified in the Capitol, but they're fractured across the country. She called them disenfranchised 2024 voters.
And then she brings it right back to Georgia, basically confirming the conditions that led to that blue tsunami we saw just before the HD 121 flip.
The Public Service Commission races.
Exactly. She noted that Republicans lost those commission seats heavily, 60-40, proving that even traditionally red voters are deeply unhappy with the financial pinch.
And she really emphasized the true financial hardship Americans face, echoing Gissler's entire platform.
She made it personal, intergenerational. She mentioned her own kids' generation, ages 22, 26, 28, and said they're looking toward the future with very little hope.
That testimony from a staunch Republican, it validates the very economic pain that Gissler was campaigning on. It confirms the driving force behind that youth quake. When a prominent figure in your own party says the next generation has very little hope, you know it's a structural problem, not a political hoax.
So the Georgia HD 121 flip, as dramatic as it was, it can't be seen in a vacuum. It's part of a broader pattern of Democratic overperformance, what the sources are calling a national blue tsunami.
We saw the precedent for this in Georgia even before Gissler's win, with those Public Service Commission races in early November.
And those commissions are vital. They regulate state utilities, they determine your electricity and gas rates, so they're directly tied to that affordability issue.
And the results were historic. 2 statewide Georgia Public Service Commission seats flipped blue for the first time in decades. A big, big deal.
And the magnitude of the shift is the key. Seat 2 went from a narrow Republican +2 win previously to a massive Democratic +25 victory.
And seat 3 was similar.
Almost identical. It flipped from Republican +2 to Democrat +26.
We're talking about colossal shifts of nearly 30 points in races that are normally reliable Republican wins. It shows the momentum in HD 121 wasn't a fluke. It was an established trend.
And if Georgia is the laboratory for this, then Miami, Florida offers another stunning data point. It demonstrates what the sources call the toxicity of the political brand in diverse metropolitan areas.
That's right, the Miami mayor seat. It flipped blue for the first time in 30 years. A monumental reversal in a city with a traditionally Republican-leaning political structure.
The swing was just dramatic. In 2021, the Maggi-aligned Mayor Suarez won by 67%. This time, the Democrat, Eileen Higgins, won by nearly 20 points. A complete reversal.
And the sources pinpointed the dagger for the Republican candidate Gonzalez as Donald Trump's last-minute endorsement.
Right. He reportedly got it by surprise via text, and it immediately seemed to drag his campaign down.
And this is especially potent in Miami, which is a city of immigrants. 60% of residents were born outside the U.S.
So the conversation quickly pivoted to immigration. At a key debate, Gonzalez was challenged on whether he supported the former president's policy of rounding up immigrants.
He tried to walk that tightrope, saying he supported rounding up criminals. But Higgins, the Democrat, successfully argued that the federal crackdown is going after everybody.
And she brought it down to the real-world impact on Miami-Dade residents. She cited the economic harm from eliminating temporary protected status, or TPS, for Venezuelans.
How many people did that affect?
Almost 100,000 people in Miami-Dade alone. Higgins told a story about a local clinic owner who was forced by the federal government to fire 27 people who instantly lost their work status.
So that perfectly illustrates Gisler's strategy on a larger scale. Aggressive federal policy isn't just abstract, it's actively destroying local jobs and local businesses right there in Miami.
And Mayor Higgins made her final point crystal clear. She said she was glad the former president did not endorse her, cementing the idea that the association was a liability.
So this confluence of events, a gerrymandered seat flipping in Georgia, massive statewide swings, a historic mayoral loss in Miami, it creates a clear national signal.
These big Democratic overperformances, they are happening precisely where the pain points of affordability, healthcare, and immigration policy intersect. The political terrain is just fundamentally shifting.
So if we synthesize this entire analysis, the core theme is undeniable. Tactical maneuvering, no matter how brilliant you think it is, like gerrymandering HD 121, it just can't overcome the simple, painful, everyday realities voters face.
And this movement is particularly pronounced among young voters. They have shown they will cross any partisan line and defy any map to vote on their own economic survival. The sources suggest there's this overwhelming feeling that people are just sick and tired, sick of the pain, the high cost of living, and the fear that the future is being mortgaged away.
It's the ultimate political irony, isn't it?
Yeah.
You design a weapon, a gerrymandered district based on old assumptions about who votes how, but that weapon completely fails because the grinding economic pain you refuse to acknowledge has activated an entirely new generation of voters who just care about making rent next month.
And that really leads to the critical final thought for you to consider. If a party can't manage to hold districts, they literally engineered for victory.
Districts they should win in their sleep.
Exactly. And if their response to voter pain is to call affordability a hoax, I mean, what electoral strategy is left for them? What's the path forward? Especially when the single largest voting bloc of the future young voters has just demonstrated that economic survival trumps everything else. It seems to demand this fundamental, wrenching shift away from the national culture wars and right back to the kitchen table. And if they fail to make that adjustment, they risk a full-scale reckoning where all their tactical advantages, like gerrymandering, are just completely nullified. And that is the indelible lesson of Georgia HD 121.